our speaker today. His name is Mike Coyne-Logan. Graduated from Northern Illinois University with a degree in history and teaching. In 2005, Mike started volunteering at events with Living Lands and Waters. And in 2007, Mike was hired on full-time with the organization. He is a crew member and educational facilitator with Living Lands and Waters. So, welcome,
Thank you guys
Mike.
for having me today. Just to come out here and speak about the organization and give me the opportunity to talk about. It's been a really awesome year. Chad winning the CNN Hero Award, and a lot of that had to do with a lot of local support and people voting for him in the community to win the award, and it's allowed us to do some really cool things. I know with that money, the crew is now, we planted 300,000 acorns at a new nursery. We put it in Davenport, and last week we were putting down the irrigation system, and they're still messing with that today and doing some weeding and getting everything kind of lined up with the new nursery, which is awesome because our old nursery we had before was in Beardstown. Our schedule's so crazy that it's hard for us as a crew to get down there to maintain it, and then also being in the Quad Cities also great. We have such a great volunteer base to help us do simple things like get people out to help us weed it and stuff like that. So just was there last week. They're starting to sprout already, some of the oak saplings that we give away for free, part of our Million Trees project. But I want to get into the organization. Is everybody familiar, at least with Chad's story, or I can? Yes. Okay, and I know some of you guys aren't, some of you aren't. I'll just kind of give a brief kind of history of how the organization was started by Chad, my friend and boss, who he grew up right on the Mississippi River, small town in Hampton. His parents' house was literally 15 feet from the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River was his backyard. He spent a lot of time on the river, just playing on the river, fishing on the river, worked as a commercial mussel diver on the river with his brother in high school and college to earn extra money. In the summers, they would camp on islands up and down the Mississippi River to save money, diving for these mussels. And they did it for, back then, the cultured pearl industry, where they would send those shells overseas and they would inject pieces of those shell and oysters over there to have them artificially produce. That would then cause them to produce these pearls for the cultured pearl industry. Anyways, it was all this time that he spent out there on the river working and playing and growing up, and they noticed there was this problem. There was all this garbage on the river, and he wanted to do something about it. There's something he cared about. It was his backyard. He was passionate about it, obviously. And so at 17, he started making phone calls to officials of the state government of Illinois asking for funding to start a river cleanup project, and they all told him the same thing. They said no, but they had different reasons. Some said, sounds like a good idea, but we don't have the funding to give you. Others said, what garbage are you talking about? And others said, you're crazy, you're never going to make a difference. You can take garbage out of it and get it flooded back in or dumped back in. So here Chad could have given up, but like I said, this was something he's very passionate about. He's a very persistent person. He's very driven, and this is something he cared deeply about. So fast forward, about a year later, he's in college and his buddies were watching a NASCAR race on TV, and he noticed something. What do you see on the outside of a NASCAR? Well, you see tires. And we see plenty of those, unfortunately, too. But advertisement. And he thought if companies are willing to sponsor someone to drive a NASCAR, maybe a company would be willing to sponsor someone to start a cleanup project. He took that idea, ran with it, opened up his phone book, started with the letter A, and one of the first companies here locally that he approached was Alcoa. And after some finagling, he finally got to set up a meeting. He got in there, talked to somebody, pitched this idea, and they said, hey, it sounds like a great idea, it sounds like an interesting idea, but how much? What do you think your budget's going to be for that first year? And Chad estimated about $80,000. So they weren't like, oh, okay, $80,000, no problem. Go ahead, get started, kid. Good luck. They said, we can give you a part of that money, but you need to go out and raise a large amount of the rest of this money on your own, and then we'll give you a portion of it. He said, okay, no problem. So for about 6 weeks, goes out, goes to different companies, goes to different individuals asking for help, and all these people, turn him down again. But one of the things that, when I say the $80,000, you want to hire a couple people part-time, you want to build another boat besides his own, paying for fuel, disposal fees, for food as they camped up and down the island. So he went back and said, hey, no one else was willing to give me any money. Would you guys still be interested in supporting me? And they said, here's what we'll do. We'll give you $8,400. Basically enough money for Chad to go out by himself and start picking up garbage. And that's what he did for that first year. By himself every day picking up garbage. And people would see him and obviously were like, what are you doing? It'd be weird, seeing a kid with a bowl full of garbage. They didn't know if he was dumping or what he was doing, So we tell them, and some were like, oh, okay. And then other people were like, this kid's not going to last a month. He's crazy. But some people were like, wow, this is awesome. some of these people, they contact the local newspaper, the Quad City Times. Quad City Times came out, ran a story on chat, ran on the front page of the paper. People read the article in the community and were like, this is great. This kid's out there every day cleaning up garbage. In the article also mentioned how Alcoa gave him the help, so they're like, oh, that's awesome, Alcoa did good PR for Alcoa. But on top of all that, through the Associated Press, these major news networks get wind of this story, this young guy trying to clean up the Mississippi River. And one of those news stations was CNN, and that's one of the first clips I want to show to you that kind of brought national attention to this problem.
My name is Pegracke. I'm from East Moline, Illinois. I grew up right on the Mississippi River. I mean, my house is, like 10 feet from the river, and I spent most of my time on the water. I have been compared to a modern day Huck Finn by some, but I don't know whether that's true or not. Because I was living on the islands for the last 6 years as a commercial mussel diver, I saw trash and I was tired of living around trash, camping out. All the beaches were totally trash and nobody was coming out to pick them up. So I thought, well, if I don't do it, who's going to? And this is Mississippi, the largest river in the nation. In my opinion, the most valuable resource our nation has to offer. And yet it's been so neglected in the past and so, so trashed, and I think that it's time to be picked up. What I find out here is basically like a lot of barrels, tires, bottles, cans, mattresses for refrigerators, TV sets, everything you can imagine that'd be in a city dump, you find out here. Here we go. But you know what? It's not going to miraculously go into a dump downriver or something, end up in a landfill. It's just going to go farther down the river. It's going to be in the river no matter if a flood took it here or what. And if it doesn't end up in the river, it ends up in the Gulf. So, yeah, you gotta love this little spot here. 25 years ago, it was bad. You just dumped everything in the river. That's just what people did, 50 years ago, that's it. Didn't matter. Oh, look at this. Are they full? No, unfortunately. Oh, no, I don't drink it. I usually just dump them out and leave them like they were. Oh, perfect. Second one I found like this year. Look at that. Boy, there's like a whole bunch. Yeah, one man gathers where another man spills. That's what it is. Yeah. I guess I'm the gatherer.
For that first year, but he knew to really make a difference that he was going to need he wanted to hire people to work with him every day full time. He wanted to get more equipment. He also wanted to recruit volunteers from up and down the Mississippi River to make the biggest difference that he knew was necessary to really have an impact. And I'm going to show you how things have changed here in a little bit. But it's one of those things, growing up here, I'd fish on the river with my dad, and then you get older, and I kind of took it for granted, just something I grew up, right across on a bridge. But how important and why it is to the area. First of all, 18 million people get their daily drinking water from the Mississippi River. It's important to transportation. Billions of dollars of goods are shipped up and down our rivers every year for recreation. And when you talk about drinking water, though, too, one of the things we take for granted is being in an area, not only in the world, but in the United States, where there's not a water shortage. Out west in California, there's a lot more stricter regulations on how they use their water, how they, water their lawns and stuff, because they had a huge drought there this year. But when you talk about water that you access for drinking in the world, it's about 1% of the world's water that is used as drinking water. And out of that less than 1%, 70% of that goes towards agriculture, and 20% towards like industrial use, and then 10% of that, less than 1%, is used for drinking water. So it's one of those things we sometimes take for granted. We think there's this, unlimited supply or resource that, it's important to protect, if any reason, for that reason alone. So I wanted to show you this next clip. This is kind of show you how things have grown and progressed from when Chad first started. This is from the CBS Sunday morning show. And this is from about 7 years ago.
A mess. Mark Strassman takes us aboard.
Mississippi, won't you keep on shining on? Mississippi, won't you keep Watching Chad Pegracke cruise the Mississippi River, you can't help but think, this guy's got it made. At 32, he spends his days going with the flow.
It's kind of like a living life force. It sounds kind of strange and hokey, but it's really not. To me, like the river, it represents like freedom, you know, and I mean, it's a way of life.
His way of life. No time clock, no bosses, no commute.
All in all, nice place to go to work.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, if you have to be there at 8, you just wake up at 7:50. Boom. Here you are.
At the office.
I'm here. How are you?
It all sounds pretty idyllic. But before you offer to trade places, you should first know exactly what Chad does all day. He picks up garbage. A lot of garbage. Tons of garbage.
But this would be the garbage barge. That would be the recycling barge. We probably have, 3,000 to 4,000 tires collected. And then obviously all the refrigerators, the appliances, you know, water heaters, propane tanks, barrels. This stuff's from like a month's worth of work, just this stuff here. We've already unloaded 2 of these barges completely full though.
Oh.
This year already, so it's just, and that would be heaped, the entire thing heaped full. Anything that you would find like in a landfill or in a house, it winds up here.
It's a huge job. But what's truly amazing is, it isn't really Chad's job. He volunteered, or you could say, the river called him to it. He grew up in tiny Hampton, Illinois, with the Mississippi literally in his backyard. As a teenager, he worked as a clam digger and a commercial shell diver. And wherever he went, he found garbage.
It wasn't like I woke up one morning and said, the river's dirty. It was a lot of time spent out there in different situations. And the more I started to focus on it, I really was, this is amazing how bad it is.
So one day when he was 17, he decided to do something remarkable. Clean up the Mississippi River. One rusted barrel, one old tire at a time.
At the beginning, was it just you against the dirty river?
No, I just, it was me against that pop can or, you know, that barrel or that tire. I just wanted to do something and be able to see the results, you know.
And how long was it just you out there fishing stuff out of the river?
The first year, but I never intended for it just to be myself out there because I knew how much stuff had accumulated over the last 75 years or so, and I knew I could only make so much of a, you know, an impact.
So in 1997, he formed a non-profit organization, Living Lands and Waters. For the past 10 years, he and a half-dozen crew members have worked full-time, living off donations, cleaning America's waterways.
What are your priority rivers? Mississippi?
Mississippi's definitely our main focus. The Ohio River's our main focus. The Anacostia and Potomac, we work out there as well. The Missouri and the Illinois, those are kind of our main ones, and those are some of the bigger ones in the country.
Traveling from town to town, they recruit volunteers along the way. Find a lot of interesting goodies.
See, I found a tire and a soccer ball and a propane tank thing. My thought for the day is that if nothing else, I will never use another piece of styrofoam in my life because I think I picked up about 8 pounds of just little tiny pieces of styrofoam.
With their help, over the last decade, Chad estimates he's pulled nearly 4 million pounds of garbage from America's rivers.
Let's do it. Let's load up and go on over there.
A recent Saturday morning found Chad in Burlington, Iowa, where 150 residents showed up to help. Curiously, all of them with the same first name.
Hey, how you doing, dude? Good to see you. How you doing? Thanks, dude. Hey, man. Hey, Chad. How you doing, dude? Dude, I know. Dude, representing, dude.
Jeff Bergman's with Iowa's Department of Conservation. He's worked with Chad on his stops here for the last 9 years.
Would this have happened without him? Oh, no, not to this magnitude. You'll see a little cleanup. You'll see a little here, a little there. No, it wouldn't happen without Chad's goodwill. No, he's a cheerleader. He makes things happen.
It's kind of heavy, isn't it?
It's heavy lifting, but Chad keeps things light, turning every cleanup into a round of garbage barge poker. Best haul wins.
Like if we go out and you get 3 refrigerators in a day, like in a boatload, I should say, it tops any other boatload. But if you get 2 bowling balls, that trumps the 3 refrigerators. That's the inside. If you've never seen the inside of a bowling ball, the ice breaks them, I believe, because we find a lot of broken ones. We have bones here.
Okay, what's the story with this?
I don't know. It looks pretty, I really don't know. We haven't probably checked those out.
The barge the crew lives on is decorated with river serendipity. It's a floating gallery of found art.
Babies. What's all to do with that?
I don't know, somebody on the crew started putting them up there, but honestly, we found literally thousands of dolls. That's just like within a couple weeks, somebody put that up there.
Are you still pulling the same sorts of stuff out of the Mississippi today that you were 5 or 10 years ago?
Some of the same sort of stuff, yes, but a lot less of it. A lot of towns we don't even go back to that we've been in the past, because it's clean.
Between cleanups, Chad and the crew hold education seminars. So far, 1,500 teachers have become Chad students.
But I think we really are having an impact through you guys.
And he's written a book about his adventures, which he hopes will inspire others as he was inspired.
I once read in a book that the earth is not destroyed as a whole. It's not just boom, it's destroyed. It's piece by piece. And I think that's the same way that it needs to be fixed. It could be a tire by tire pulling out of the river, or a barrel, or whatever it is, little by little. It's the little things that really do add up. And if a lot of people come together and do those little things, it adds up to big things.
Seven years ago in Burlington, but you can see that this is something that started just with one guy, and a lot of people doubted him, you know, just couldn't garbage by himself. We now have the barges. We live on the house barge 6 to 7 months out of the year, and that's actually our old house barge. The new one we had just built about 3 years ago. Not only do we have teachers on board now, we do education with students, because the one thing to keep cleaning up garbage, but, you know, educate students and young people why our rivers are important and how do we keep them clean, and what is some of the problem, how does this stuff get there, which I'll get to here in a little bit. But like I said, since Chad first started, we've worked on a total of 23 rivers in 19 states, and with the help of over about 70,000 volunteers, we remove about 7.5 million pounds of garbage from our nation's rivers. And we try to recycle as much of that stuff as possible. One of my favorite events that we do, and we worked the last 4 years to do this event, is something called Alternative Spring Break, where we trick college students, instead of going somewhere nice, to come out during their spring break and pick up garbage with us. Now they're free to do whatever they want at night, but during the day they're awesome. These kids come from all over the country. You know, we've had hundreds of students come out over the years. The last 4 years we worked in Memphis, and they've been great. I think we've, just with their help and then some local volunteers as well, we removed about 600,000 pounds of garbage from this area in Memphis. And I want to show you, this is a time lapse of these students from this year, and this is 3 weeks worth of work, and this is them, if you hit play here, this is them filling up this bar, and this isn't showing all the scrap metal we got too, but this is like, and we got the fastest kids in the country. We had time trials. We took the best of the best. So, no, but this is obviously sped up, but you can see how much gets done in just 3 weeks worth of work. You know, we go out on our john boats, get this, and then we load it, have these chains and have them load this stuff in this section of the barge. And they're great. I mean, we try to make it fun. We have like karaoke in a boat. We give out prizes to kids certain days for different things they find, and garbage that we got. We just had an event a week and a half ago with Anheuser-Busch, about 100 of their employees, that we sort through this stuff. And not only the tires get recycled, Bridgestone takes our tires, our scrap metal, but also that bag garbage. We have big tables, they sort out the recyclable materials. And if we go to this is actually from last year. So we have these tables. This is in Davenport, and where Public Services has been super helpful at all these events by providing those rollaway trash cans, one where we separate, so they have these tables, they'll put recyclable in one trash can and dumpsters, and they trash in another. And then some of these trucks are designated for recyclables and others are for trash. But you can see this isn't about 3 hours work, how much this is about 200 people, how much stuff can get done in just 3 hours work and sorting through this stuff. So yeah. So you can see how much stuff got done and you know how much we sorted through. That was Metallica too, as I was wondering. Wherever they sell their music, no. So that and at that event we have music playing, not only Metallica, we mix it up a little bit if that wasn't your taste. 3,000 to 4,000 tires we pull out of the year from the river. These are some tires that we offloaded on our barge. Sometimes we have, you know, it's nice. You get a crane come in and they'll load up trucks, but this we had to hand load into a skid steer, drive these up the hill to get in a pile up here. But then once again, tricking college students into helping us, and this is just a time lapse of that. So these are getting loaded in a truck that Bridgestone then will take away for free, because it used to be anywhere from $2 to $20 a tire to get rid of this. So it's a huge saving. And Bridgestone, anybody that does river cleanups, they throughout the country, as long as you contact them and they know it's legit, they'll take your tires away for free. They get used and shred up and used in tracks, for like high school tracks, turf, under playgrounds. We even have, I've seen like recycled tire materials for like keychains. So, and then ground up in asphalt in some applications too. So this is just the kids working to move these tires into a truck.
Every day I'm shuffling.
So that obviously makes her work. Many hands make light work, or some. We get help what I once from volunteers. Let me keep this mic. We get help from volunteers, but a lot of times we'll go out as a crew and we'll get stuff in a location where there's a lot of stuff. So Chad will go out on a boat, I'll go on a boat, but then we'll kind of compete to see who get the biggest boatload. Like if he gets more refrigerators than me, then he's kind of won for the day. But he kind of mentioned there's certain items that are worth more points or more unique. And then we talk trash about our trash. But this is some of the more unique stuff we found, and kind of how that system works.
Crazy world is a bowling ball. My question, guys: do you think that bowling balls float or sink? Sink. They actually float and sink are both right. Let me explain. So bowling balls are a standard volume. They have to be the same volume, but their weights can vary. The heaviest the bowling ball can be, though, is 16 pounds. I think the lightest you see bowling balls maybe 4 or 5 pounds. But they're all the same volume, but their weight. So depending on their weight determines whether or not they float. So if they're 12 pounds or lighter, they will float. And the ones we find are all floaters. If they're over 12 pounds, then they'll sink based on their density, which is mass divided by volume. So bowling balls, they float, and they're worth more than a refrigerator. Other unique items, I found this in Memphis. This guitar, which is kind of cool. Last night I was inspired by my dog Sugar to write a song that I wanted to share with you guys today. Make sure everything's tuned up here.
I can't see it.
Call this short but sweet. Thank you. I've been performing at the iWireless Center to maybe 3 people if I'm lucky. Another thing that's worth a lot are motorcycle helmets. This is probably the coolest helmet that anybody's ever found. I didn't find this one. I wish I did, but this is probably one of the neater helmets that was ever found out there. But that's worth more in our crazy world as far as the point system scale that we've kind of evolved. Tough thing about this job, my girlfriend, she's a teacher, so I'm on the road a lot, living on the barge 6 to 7 months out of the year. So, you're gone, but what's great is, to show her that I care, that I love her, it's all about, getting her gifts. Let her know that I care, let her know that she's special to me. The great thing about this job, though, is I never actually have to purchase anything, because the river shall provide. Last Valentine's Day, the Ohio River provided this for me. A stuffed jalapeno pepper that says I'm hot for you. Keeps things spicy. What else we got in here? It's kind of a unique item we found, but radar gun. So found really old cans, like the beer cans, pop cans. It's kind of cool. Find one of the craziest things that we've ever found was not crazy, but I mean this is the only thing I actually washed with soap and water that's in there. But this toilet seat. What's cool about this though? There's literally a guy on our board that played linebacker for Purdue, and he saw this in my bin of stuff, and he goes, "Oh, Purdue." I go, "Dude, you should sign it." And he did. So it's it's an autographed Purdue Boilermaker toilet seat found from the river. I'm pretty sure it's the only one like it in the world. But of course, with a toilet seat goes poo. It's gonna get worse. We found this in Wisconsin after Lake Delton, the dam broke there, and those houses got washed in. We worked up there in Wisconsin removing housing debris, and this was pulled from one of the houses. This sounds sassy. I'm thinking about making a chain out of it and kind of wear it as a necklace, sassy, and then put a stopwatch on me, see how long it takes for me before I get beat up. What else we got? Oh, the coolest thing you can find. The coolest thing. Can everybody hear me too? I'll get back to the mic. The coolest thing you can find, though, if you find this, basically one for the day, is a message in a bottle. And I found this. I've only found 3 in the 7 years I've been out there. But this one I found in 2010 on an island in St. Louis. And this was originally put in 1997 on the Kansas River. Wow. And the Kansas then empties into the Missouri. The Missouri then enters into the Mississippi around Wood River. So this was put in 97 by a girl at the time who was 10, and the message talks about what the girl looks like. It also talks about that she has a brother, what he looks like, and says, if you find this message, please try to contact her. Had her contact information on there. So we called the number after I bragged to Chad, and he said, well, let's call it. And he called up the number, and the girl no longer lived that residency. It was 13 years ago. Then looked up the girl's name on Facebook, and tried a couple of those names and tried to contact a couple of the girls that we saw with the same name, and those both failed. But then I realized maybe her last name had changed because she was 10 when she wrote it. She was 23 or 24 by the time we were trying to reach her. So her last name might change because she got married. A girl on the crew pointed out though, but you could try to find her through her brother, and that's why I'll probably never be a detective. But I still need to do that. But that's one of the coolest things you can find is a message in a bottle. Is there any questions at this point? I want to get to this, but does anybody have any questions? Why?
I found some BB guns before. I've never found an actual gun. You know, because a lot of the stuff we get, it's close to the shoreline if it's underwater, or it's washed up on the shore. Because there's plenty of that stuff. And as far as being deep in the main channel, we once, like when the river was low a couple years ago, Chad helped pull a stolen vehicle out near Rock Island, near one of the sloughs. But that's because the water was so low. And he just hooked it, and then we had a tow truck. Grisham Towing helped us pull it out. But now we have, I'll show you in a little bit, we now have a crane that we can get bigger items ourselves that we never used to have before. We got about in the last 2 years. Any other questions? Wow.
You say you work in several states. I'm curious as to how the various laws in those states affect the amount of trash you find. In Iowa, there's a bottle law, which gets a lot of things returned to the grocery stores. Illinois doesn't have that, but Minnesota has a lot of recycling stations, and Minnesota, you go in there and they have different places to put different kinds of trash. So is there a cleaner state because of these laws?
It just depends. I think it is cleaner up north, and usually you don't start seeing it. But it depends. The Ohio River is dirty, really dirty. Ohio River is technically the most toxic, and there's a lot of stuff in the Ohio River. And I think it depends on the city. But I know you're talking about like in Minneapolis, like up north, even Dubuque, which I think would be great. I don't see why we have like just recycling bins besides garbage bins at gas stations, and just that culture of Memphis is a place that's, and I'll show you these photographs, is a lot worse than here in the Quad Cities or farther north. That's a tough question to answer. You'd have to ask somebody smarter than me. I'm totally with you. I think that if the more people can get to recycle stuff and keep them from throwing out and discarding.
We did a lot with just the ad campaign back in the 60s and 70s to eliminate trash, because I remember traveling with my parents in the 50s before the interstate highways, and when we were through something, it just went out the window.
That's just what people did, right?
My mother thought it was really cool. Of course, you got a free map at the service station, but as we went along, whatever we traveled on, she'd tear that part off the map, and that would go out the window too.
Right. Yeah.
So, and we have totally changed that culture to where I'm involved with a group that keeps a 2-mile stretch of Highway 61 over in Iowa clean, and we go out maybe twice a year and really pick up. We pick up stuff, we always do, but not tons.
It's gotten better. I think it depends on the place. Like here, it's got a lot better. Just from Chad and the organization, and then also just doing the extreme cleanup every year. And just, is it perfect? No, but it's gotten better. Can it still get better? Yeah. You gotta always think things can get better and we can improve on stuff. But as far as like different places, I can just speak to you where there's more stuff. Like the Ohio River is really dirty. Memphis, like even St. Louis, we've done so many cleanups there. There's still a lot of stuff, but we just work so much in the area. You do 1 or 2 cleanups a year with 200 people. Now it's getting to the point where, like here and in certain areas, we got all these volunteers. We don't know where to take them, which is a great thing. Whereas in Memphis, right here, just sit down and just fill a bag in 30 seconds, and you'll see. But even there, it's gotten a lot better. And I'll show you from these photos. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know I just don't know.
I realize.
That's a great. I think it's an important thing to think about and talk about, though. Yes.
A morbid question.
Yes.
How many bodies have we stuff?
We have found. We found 2 remains of bones and 1 living guy. In St. Louis, one time, a lady came running up to us and said, "Hey, a guy just jumped off the Eads Bridge." And we're like, I'm thinking, this guy's gone. And we had just got done doing a huge cleanup, and there were some union carpenters that had built our new place that we live on. They had to be there too. We're sitting on the riverfront. I think we just started drinking our first beer after the day working. They call us and say, "Hey, there's a guy out there that jumped," and I'm like, this guy's gonna be gone. So I hop in a boat, I yell at these other guys, and luckily those union guys were there, because to have somebody else in the boat, the guy was holding on to the pier of the Eads Bridge. I don't know, he must have hit the water and then had second thoughts about what he was trying to do. So, and the other bodies that we found, Chad, one was found in the Des Plaines River. The Plaines is right before the Illinois River near Chicago, like Joliet. They thought originally it might have been Stacy Peterson's body, from that Scott, the cop, but it wasn't. He just found out a year ago it was some guy, and it was just the bones of a body. The other two bodies were just bones. But, you know, call the police and contact them, so. Yeah, that same day I found a dead pit bull in a bag, and I came back like, hey guys, guess what I found? And before I could say anything, Chad found a body, and they're like, what'd you find? I go, never mind. So, anyway, garbage. This is kind of what I want to talk about. You know, just as a whole, I think we need to get better and be conscious of little things that we do on a daily basis. You know, we make up 5% of the world's population, but are responsible for 25% of its garbage. We come out of a throwaway society, and just being conscious about little everyday things that we do. And I don't want to just call it out, like, that's why I bring my, you know, the reason for me, like styrofoam, after you pick up a million pieces of it off the river, you're like, man, I don't want to try to avoid it. And I know it happens, and I do too. I know we're drinking, but, you know, it happens. Sometimes it's convenient. But I think if everybody makes a little conscious decision using reusable water bottles, reusable containers, it's cheaper, it all starts to make a difference. So we go to the next slide. So how does trash in the river? A lot of people there's this misconception that people are just dumping stuff directly into the water. Well, they're not. You know, it's from weather, wind, just litter in general. You know, you talk about the Mississippi River's watershed, you're talking about from 7,000 rivers eventually flowing the Mississippi River. 31 states make up that watershed. From the Colorado Rockies in the west to the Appalachians in the east. From the boreal forest in Canada all the way down to the cypress swamps in New Orleans. You know, it really connects the country, and all this water that eventually flows in and affects the water quality of the Mississippi that, like I said, 18 million people get their daily drinking water from. And how does it get in there? Well, it comes in from, you know, trash cans like this. We've all seen it. A garbage man's not going to, especially spots where all this litter, he's got to pick up other cans. He's not going to have the time to pick up all this other garbage that's laying next to it. Animals get to it, wind, weather, works its way down to storm drains, creeks, and streams, that then eventually over time pushes itself into our rivers. If we go to the next one. People, you know, illegally dumping. Go to the next one. Floods and disasters, you know, a lot of stuff we see, like, that we find it's been flooded in. Storm drains, you know, we try to educate kids and you know, this doesn't magically go to a landfill. Where do these storm drains head to? My favorite one is this one. And a lot of people don't, I mean, I've seen commercial fishermen that make their living off the river. They don't know. They think it's just harmful paper. They flick a cigarette butt into the water. One cigarette butt can float up to 5 to 7 gallons of water. That filter, you know, filters out some of the most toxic elements of that cigarette. Well, 1.7 billion pounds, you know, when it rains and washes us down a storm drain, that gets into our waterways. This is a crazy number to me. 1.7 billion pounds a year pollute world waterways with cigarette butts. It's a crazy stat. Now this is Memphis. This is all water. This is sitting on. This is all floating on water. You go to the next one. Memphis again, floating on water. Memphis again, that's all water, like I said. And you can see why I kind of try to avoid styrofoam too. Go to the next one. So this is a truck from the city. A lot of that's in the water. They're picking up like debris and sticks, so they didn't really come down there. I don't want you to get the impression how this stuff was cleaned up was college kids that we took out there, like I said, and tricked into help clean this up. So this is a site this is what it looks like today. What was cool when we first got there, we had guys in canoes saying, we've been cleaning garbage out here forever, we're never gonna make a difference. And they're like, no, I think we might do something. 4 years, 600,000 pounds worth of stuff. The other cool thing about this particular site, a guy from the University of Memphis started his own local cleanup group with a lot of university students and the people in the community of Memphis. They do cleanups once a month in the Memphis area too. And things are getting better. This all comes through, this is a lake it's old oxbow of the river. They blocked off the Corps of Engineers. But this lake enters out into the Mississippi River. And it was created for more portage for industry in Memphis. They had run out of space for industry. So they blocked, but there's a creek, non-kind creek that runs through Memphis, and it pushes all this garbage in this lake. It collects in here, and then eventually works its way out into the main channel of the river. So other places too as well we've worked. The Delaware River in Philadelphia, this is just outside the river. This is under last year with John Deere employees. We did clean up under the 280 bridge. Peoria, Illinois. So we fill our John boats. These boats can hold 2,000 to 3,000 pounds worth of weight. We fill them with trash. We've got our crane now, which is awesome. That's Chad in front of a camper that was on the side of the river that we pulled out. You can see that's crane giving us more. I showed you guys this recycle like a rock star. You can go to the next one. We've seen this. You can go to the next slip. This is our new. So what's cool is this is our tub. This is what pushes us. This is all done by spray paint. The painting by graffiti muralists out of St. Louis. This is our floating classroom, built with a lot of recycled materials. Got solar panels and we're parked. A lot of our power runs off that solar, but we collect the garbage in these boats, unload onto this barge, and then sort it up onto these other barges. We live on this, like I said, 6 to 7 months out of the year. Recycled barn tin on the outside. A lot of the kitchen flooring is recycled. The kitchen is all recycled barn oak for the flooring refurbished. Our cabinets, our table, recycled trusses from a flooded building. So we used a lot of materials in the making of that barge. That's the inside. So this is pretty nice. It's actually really nice. And so we have students out here and do hands-on river education with them. Also doing camps with kids this summer. So we take a photograph of all the kids that come out here, and then we hang their photos on the floating classroom. So they're permanently fixed there after they come out. These are different activities they do. Test the water. This is a lesson on sustainability. Reduce, reuse, recycle with Girl Scouts. We head out doing. We take them out in the river, we connect them. I think that's one of the things. You know, Chad didn't start cleaning up the river because he read about it. You know, it was because he grew up. He was connected to the river. And I think these days, I think a lot of people are getting disconnected from the outdoors and from nature. And people protect what they know and love. And if you're disconnected, why would you want to protect something you don't ever go out and appreciate? Million Trees Project. This is Brappen. Then you never know what you're going to find. This is just some interesting photos. Hot tub. Porta potty, bike, canoe. That's a prosthetic leg. It's kind of sideways on the right there. A message in a bottle. And the other reason you protect the river, you know, not for all these other reasons, because it is a beautiful place. This is up north. This was taken, a beautiful shot of the Mississippi. The Hudson River, just the waterfall that we did some scouting in New York. Just the deer. These deer, I was out, we scout for guard before big cleanups, and these deer were not afraid of me at all. It was kind of cool. St. Louis is a pretty shot. The chain of rocks there. Hannibal, Missouri, birthplace of Mark Twain. And I do these presentations with students, so Lady Liberty is counting on you, and then the next shot, you are the king.
Funding sources again?
A lot of sponsors from all over the place, and I'd leave some out, and then individual donations. But I'd say about 70% is from corporate sponsors.
What's your budget for a year?
Right now, you know, so it started at $8,400. We're probably about $1.7 million per year, which is pretty impressive. But we do a lot. You know, all those workshops we do. I think we're going to do 60 to 70 free educational workshops. Then just the travel, moving. Obviously, I don't want to get all. Yeah, so 13 full-time staff. And then pilots that we hire on and off to move us where we need to be moving.
Does Chad still live here?
Chad does still live here. He lives right on the river. Still lives here. But we're all always, you know, we're gone 6, 7 months out of the year. This is just lucky. Our schedule's different this year. We're here during this time, and then we leave in the fall and the winter. Our schedule this year, just the way it worked out. We'll be on the Ohio River this fall, and then down in New Orleans in December.
They can make money off of steel.
Yeah, we sell the scrap. All the scrap we'll sell and recycle, but it's in the grand scheme of things, it helps. But everything helps, but it's not much to our overall budget and operating cost.
How dirty is Louisiana or New Orleans? Do you ever do anything like the Pontchartrain and all that kind of stuff?
We've scouted Pontchartrain a little bit. Last year we just worked on the river. We've been there a couple. So the first time that the crew went down to New Orleans before I started, they went down there and did relief for Hurricane Katrina. They loaded up the barge with like drywall and a bunch of supplies and helped gut some homes. And then the last 2 times I we've done cleanups, but on the river. And there's plenty of stuff there, but it just the problem there is so much industry. you know, there's only certain spots where you can get into. I mean, stuff's everywhere, but you know, like an oil refinery doesn't want you pulling up in a boat off the river. So you got to kind of work with people and make connections. And there's a lot of spots. We literally had to put our boats in there. We had to have them craned in. There's no boat ramp near where we're cleaning up. We had to have them craned in and drop down and then crane back out again.
Wow.
Any other questions or?
Are people responsive there to help?
Oh, they're great. I always thought, like you said, like the people that we're down there with were awesome. But yeah, anybody that's coming out to help us is usually so. I mean, coming out to help us clean garbage up or to help us out is usually super good to us and really helpful. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2013 CNN Hero of the Year is Chad Pegracke.
You know, I've met so many great people today, the other heroes, and like I'm really moved by all their stories and all the things they do around the world, and like the 250 grand. I'm just gonna give 10 grand to each of them because they're awesome. So yeah. They're awesome. And I just gotta say, I just want to say I want to thank all the volunteers and especially in my hometown, all the people that voted. And you know, I just I'm humbled to be part of all of this, and I'll just keep on cleaning up America's rivers and love every minute of it. So thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time. I know we have we have our website. I got cards if anybody wants them, we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and I'm supposed to, my media person tells me to tell people that, so. I want to thank you guys for your time. That's all I have.